Hey there! Welcome to SkyGems Academy podcast. At SkyGems Academy, our vision is to build a community of new generation leaders with strong core values, high level of self-awareness, high self-worth, and passionate individuals who will give back to the community and the environment. We are focused on delivering high-quality blended online learning of 21st century life skills delivered and taught online, practiced and perfected offline. Our philosophy is to inspire, educate, and nurture. We work towards inspiring and igniting sparks. We listen, we coach, we fine-tune and accelerate the mastery of 21st century life skills for various age groups. Our blended learning programs are curated from the early years to above 60 years old, as we believe in providing high-quality, lifelong learning for everyone. SkyGems Academy Podcast Series 1: How COVID-19 Transformed the Education Industry. We will take you inside the minds and behind the scenes of 40 exclusive leaders and educators in the education industry. We've interviewed 40 exclusive educators and leaders in the education industry worldwide, starting with China, where the pandemic initially started. You will hear from the leaders in the education industry sharing candidly their views on the possible changes that will take place in the education industry post-COVID-19. Be sure to tune in to SkyGems Academy Podcast Series 1 to listen and learn from the amazing stories, experiences shared, challenges faced, and techniques used by educators in different cities and countries to adapt and overcome their challenges personally as well as professionally in their respective roles in the education industry during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, let's dive into SkyGems Academy Podcast Series 1. Introducing to you our host, Alyssa.
Hey guys, it's Alyssa. Hope everyone is keeping well. SkyGems Academy Podcast is a passion project that my team and I kicked off in early 2020. As we are all facing the unprecedented events and experiences impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, we find that there is an urgent need to unite the global community of educators and leaders to progress forward together. Our main objective is to create a platform for all global leaders and global communities to come together to document these historic moments for our future generations. SkyGems Academy Podcast is a platform for everyone from all around the world to share, listen, learn, communicate, collaborate, and come together to network and help one another to pull through this very challenging period that has impacted the global community. In each episode of SkyGems Academy Podcast Series 1, How COVID-19 Transformed the Education Industry, you will find yourself immersed and engaged in in-depth discussions and thought leadership in various aspects of education, technology, humanity, diversity, disparity, and collaborations in the education space. We are very grateful and sincerely appreciate each and every one of you who has motivated us, encouraged us, contributed in your own very special ways, especially our 40 exclusive guest speakers from all around the world. A big thank you to all and a big shout out to all of you. SkyGems Academy Podcast 15th speaker is Duriya Aziz. In her current role as Senior Vice President and Publisher, International Education at Scholastic Inc., the world's largest publisher and distributor of children's books, she is responsible for overall international education business, strategy and goals, as well as international product development, digital and print, K-12, and education roadmap. She has oversight of product strategy, product management, product marketing, content, instructional, design, UX and design, project management, as well as implementation teams. Duriya is proudest of having played a role in bringing the Singapore brand of education to more than 50 countries around the world, including the US. In Singapore, she has worked on ministry-led and developed projects for practically all subjects in the curriculum since the 1990s. I think the education industry will see significant changes. It's like a rubber band. It stretches and then you release it and compresses it again, but it never gets back to the original size, right? So to say that things will go back to how they were before would mean that none of us has learned anything from this episode. So all the stakeholders in education have been impacted significantly, said Duriya. Now I am pleased to introduce you to Duriya Aziz. Today, we have the honor and privilege to have Miss Duriya Aziz in our SkyGem podcast as our special guest. Hi, Miss Duriya. Welcome to SkyGem podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, everyone. I'm very honored and pleased to be part of this program.
Thank you, Ms. Duriya. Very nice to have you on the podcast. We look forward to having a really interesting discussion and sharing with our audience today at SkyGem podcast. Ms. Duriya, would you be able to give a short introduction of yourself to the audience?
Sure. I work for Scholastic International. I head up the Scholastic's international education business. So work with our internal stakeholders throughout the world, spanning from Australia, New Zealand to all of Asia, Africa, the United States, Europe, etc., Canada, Latin America. And part of the joy and privilege of this position is being able to interact with educators and students and education leaders throughout the world and to learn from them. And also I head up a research and development team that looks into curriculum development, new product development to support learning, whether it is at home or in school.
Thank you, Ms. Duriya. That is really a remarkable CV that you just went through with us. I'm sure a lot of us would like to be in your position. So thank you for being with us and thank you for sharing all that. It's really a learning journey for all. Ms. Duriya, during the pandemic of COVID-19 that just hit us all so suddenly, would you be able to share where were you throughout the pandemic and also how do you feel about it?
It's an interesting question that you asked. I mentioned earlier that, I have oversight of different businesses around the world. And part of my job entails significant travel. So I'm kind of, my friends joke that I live in an airplane and I land and come home to get laundry done, which is only partly true. But I would imagine, there's significant travel entailed. I travel maybe 50% of the time at least.
Wow.
And so obviously this put a brake on that. And I think, I hadn't even thought that it would be this significant that, everything would come to a halt. So that has been kind of the earth-shattering moment for me that, something that I'd always taken for granted that you have to get something done, you hop onto the plane and you go and meet people and you get it done. So, we were observing the situation and knew that things had to come to a stop. So I was very much in Singapore, planning for, what would next steps be. And I have been since I think February, I have been very much in Singapore, which is, I don't know the last time that I was, in one place for such a long time. I just can't remember this.
Wow, that's amazing. Things have changed so much when we just, as you said, hop on a plane and meet people and get things done. It's a past. It's difficult to get to that state unless things get lifted up in terms of travel restrictions and all those restrictions that we have put in right now.
Yeah, I think the flip side of the coin, though, is that I'm rediscovering the joys of staying in one place, and literally rediscovering nooks and crannies of my home that I didn't have time to discover previously.
It is good to slow down and really take a check on what's happening around us, isn't it? Especially at home, family and the loved ones. I think it's
absolutely
a good time to do that too. Fantastic. The challenges that you faced during this period, I'm sure there's some to be shared, and I hope Ms. Duriya, you could share some of the challenges that you faced during this period.
The word unprecedented is used very often with COVID-19. And it is perhaps, in our lifetime, certainly, we've gone through SARS and MERS, but nothing of this
Yes.
scale and scope at all. Probably not also in the lifetime of our parents. So it's been quite, shocking. It's been a shock because nobody
Yes.
expected this to happen. And also because today we are a globally connected world. So compared to, bygone times. And so the impact of it is multiplied and it cascades geographically, economically, socially, at a very macro level, but also at a very immediate and personal level. I think some of the challenges that I faced work-wise, I think I made the decision for my team to work remotely pretty early on, much before circuit breaker, simply because the nature of our work is such that we can actually do it remotely. In fact, much of my team is already geographically remote. So that is possible, but it's just we're so used to having an office. We're so used to having that routine of you get up in the morning, you get ready to go to work, and you go to work, you spend the day there, you have lunch with colleagues, you have your work spouses, and then you come back home. So that was the challenge of settling into a different rhythm and settling colleagues into a different rhythm of contact and communication. I think we all work very well independently. So that wasn't an issue at all. I think if anything, people are more productive, but it was just the communication and contact that, we had to be conscious about putting that in place. And I think also personally, it's the same thing. It's the social contact that I miss the most, particularly we recently concluded Ramadan, and Ramadan is a big community time for us. It's time to go to the mosque every day. And that's what I miss the most. But I think as human beings, we are very adaptable creatures. We have the potential to adapt. That's why we have survived, right? As a race, as a species even. So we quickly figure out alternative ways of achieving our objectives to achieve the outcomes that we want. So I think, yes, there are challenges, but at a human level, at an individual level, they are not insurmountable.
That's good to hear, and I'm very pleased to hear how the team and yourself and the community at large very much take it on the stride to adapt to the changes, very nimble and very agile in a mindset as well to get things done, to move forward, right? If not, we're going to be stuck in a situation that we all do not like to be in. So it's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure there's a lot of changes that has to take place. You mentioned about communications, the way we collaborate, all that has to be done remotely. Would there be any other challenges that you face, whether it's personal or professional level, that you'd like to share?
I think for one of the biggest kind of changes that I had to make was to set up a dedicated home office. So, I already used to do a fair amount of work from home, but that was out of choice, right? And so it could be sitting on the sofa in front of the TV, or sitting in the dining room, or sitting outside, and you just get things done. But now that is your way of working. It cannot be as casual and random. And so it was setting up that dedicated workspace and getting organized, which is one of the big changes that I've made, I guess, and I'm happy to have made it. I think also the other part is related to what I said earlier about communication. So I try to reach out and communicate even more with colleagues and business partners, perhaps even more so than before, so that, we are constantly in touch. And I try to ensure that the communication is not just transactional in nature. So I'm not just communicating okay, I need to get this done, or this is the deadline, or can you do this for me kind of thing, but also to ensure that we are communicating on a human interpersonal level, so that we are building or strengthening our relationship despite the lack of face-to-face contact.
I like that, the human touch, the empathy, the compassion that you put in your communication. That is gold, because at the end of the day, we are all human beings where we want to be loved, we want to be cared. Care and concern, I think, is very much needed during this pandemic period. Even though we need to get things done, I think most importantly is the human nature that we all long for, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Duriya. That is really valuable that you shared. In terms of lessons learned throughout this pandemic, what are the lessons learned would you like to share with the audience today?
I think it may be still too early to talk about lessons learned. We are still learning them. But the most important one, I think, is to always remember that people count. Character counts, kindness counts, and particularly in times when we are challenged, this is where our true self exhibits. It's how you make the decisions, what decisions you make that show you up as a human being. And I think we have a responsibility to deal with challenges as they unfold. We can't descend into a blame game to say it's his fault or her fault or whatever. This happens. It happens all the time. We have to deal with the challenges, to face them and to overcome them. Otherwise, we will become irrelevant. Life is going to move on. The world is going to keep on moving. The earth will keep on rotating. If we don't participate actively, then we will become a reaction. And that's not a good place to be in. And so as a team also, we are thinking about this all the time. We're thinking about how are things evolving. We're observing how are things evolving. What are the changes happening to us? And that's not just, what are the changes happening to our business or to the industry, but what are the societal changes that are happening? How are people relating to each other? How are people communicating? What are they spending their time doing? And how will all this then impact us? So those are, I think, the key lesson that I would take from this is to be a more participative member of society in a positive way.
That is so well said, and really, it is the humanity and the future that we all have to look at, rather than what has happened and dwell into it. So stay positive, stay looking forward and towards the positive side of things. I think everything will be okay. Thank you, Ms. Duriya, for sharing that. That's really very insightful. Now we come to the industry, the education industry. The COVID-19 clearly has some impact in the education industry. We'd like to hear from you, Ms. Duriya. What are your views on the changes that will happen or will take place in the education space post-COVID-19?
I think the education industry will see significant changes. It's like a rubber band. It stretches and then you release it and it compresses again, but it will never get back to that original size, right? So to say that things will go back to how they were before would mean that none of us learned anything from this whole episode. So all the stakeholders in education have been impacted significantly. Policymakers, school leaders, classroom teachers, parents, curriculum developers, education solution providers like ourselves, but most importantly and significantly, the children themselves. My granddaughter, who is 7 and she's in primary 1, was telling me yesterday how she was looking forward to going back to school. She says she knows she will no longer be able to sit with her partners and all that, but she just wants to go back to school. And I get it. It's the environment and the community that she misses. She has a wonderful home life, but school life, even for one so young, has such a significant impact. This, in turn, should give us pause to think as policymakers, as education leaders, as teachers, what do we spend most time, effort, and resources on? How should time in school be spent? Content and knowledge curriculum is important, obviously, but is it time for a rethink on what is prioritized, how, and where? Parents have emerged as critical enablers of their children's learning on a daily and immediate basis. I think, the changes in recent time of pedagogical changes and new approaches and technology coming in had kind of made parents take a step back and say, oh, we don't know, they're teaching all these new things in new ways in schools and we don't really know. It wasn't like this in our time. That's something that we often heard. And so parents take a step back and leave it to school, but no more, right? So now they have been forced, whether they like it or not, to become critical enablers. They are the gateway to their children's learning at home. And in so doing, they have become a very important resource and a significant opportunity for us as a society to expand the child's learning and to redefine school, schooling, learning, and education. And at the same time, children themselves, like my younger granddaughter, she's 4 years old. She now has words in her vocabulary such as virus, infection, disinfect. She knows how to wash her hands properly and to do so as soon as she enters the house before she touches anything. And she yearns for us to take her to the bird park with her cousins again sometime soon. Children learn and adapt quickly, but access to the world is so important to them. And that's something that we owe it to our future generations to make sure that, they can experience the world in all its glory and beauty.
That is so well said and well thought through. Thank you, Ms. Duriya, for sharing that. Thank you. And I love it that your 2 granddaughters are so mindful and so well behaved and so so passionate about everything, and they learn things so quickly and able to even articulate that out again. That's amazing at such a young age. Thank you, Miss Duriya, for sharing that. Love to meet your granddaughters one day.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Miss Duriya, with the current situation that we are all in, we would like to know whether you have a new normal in your life.
I think this is still evolving because we haven't settled into a situation, and I don't think any of us will ever just settle and take things for granted anymore. So if I have to say what I'm taking with me, it is really not to take things for granted and to appreciate life as it unfolds. That's probably what my new normal will be, to continue learning and to continue to be mindful of everything that's happening around.
That is true, yeah. Really be mindful about things around us, not take things for granted. Thank you, Ms. Duriya. Now we come to a very critical part, an important part of SkyGem podcast. Ms. Duriya, what would your messages be for the future generations? We'd like to hear from you.
Well, I don't know if, I am in a position to leave a message really, but if I had to, then this is what it would be. It's very simple. It's that life happens. We will be faced with challenges all the time. Every generation has had challenges that were unprecedented. A positive attitude that is committed to being part of a better tomorrow will stand us in good stead at a personal level and as a society at large. That would be my message.
Wow, very specific, very powerful message from Ms. Duriya Aziz. Thank you, Ms. Duriya, for your time and a wonderful sharing session that you've just given all of us. A lot that we've learned from you today. We look forward to seeing you soon one day, and we look forward to catching up together with your grandchildren. Thank you, Ms. Duriya, for your time, and look forward to working together and collaborating with you and your team. Thank you, Ms. Duriya.
Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode at SkyGems Academy Podcast Series 1 on the topic of how COVID-19 transformed the education industry. If you enjoyed today's episode and you love the vision and mission of SkyGems Academy, can you please help us to convince others to tune in to SkyGems Academy Podcast too? Please kindly subscribe to SkyGems Academy Podcast. Please also kindly leave a quick review and rate SkyGems Academy Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor.fm, Breaker, and various SkyGems Academy's podcast channels. That would mean the world to us, so thank you so much for your support. Visit our website at www.skygemsacademy.com to find out more about our distinguished speakers and about SkyGems Academy. We appreciate you and your continuous support. Thank you for tuning in to SkyGems Academy Podcast. High five and peace out.